Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Brian E. Roach.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground video podcast, brought to you in part by StubHub. Take a night off from a night in. Get great tickets to great events. Check out the details at steelcityunderground.com/tickets. So, camp has been underway for a couple weeks now. A lot of stuff has been going on. And there's a couple things that I think it's worth thinking about anyway, with relation to camp. First of all, one of the things that's happened that I think might be a little surprising is the amount of injuries we've gotten in our secondary. Golson got hurt again. I know everybody's saying, oh yeah, Golson got hurt again, surprise, surprise. But he did. It looks like a soft tissue injury. It doesn't look like it's going to be all that lengthy of a problem, but he hasn't practiced again and he hasn't been doing conditioning exercises. So the question really is, how long is it going to be? At the same time, Cam Sutton, the Steelers' third-round draft pick, has also been injured. And he's been out for more than a week. And Friday Night Lights, Artie Byrne, looked like maybe he had a knee injury. That doesn't look like it's going to be that bad. He was there on Sunday, and it was reported that he looked like he was getting ready to play again. But we'll see. You know, the players had a day off today. And so camp stuff will start up again tomorrow. But the thing about it, especially for guys like Golson and Sutton, is this missed time. Because you can't recapture that, right? You can't recapture the missed snaps and the missed downs and all this time these guys are missing. And for Golson more than anybody, this is crucial. After missing the first 2 years of his first two campaigns, to miss out again on time has to be so frustrating for the kid. And it's got to be also frustrating for the Steelers, who need to see what Golson has. A lot of fans are thinking, well, just cut him and be done with it. He's an injury-prone guy. I don't think that's a fair assessment, and it doesn't really save anything for the Steelers to cut him. It doesn't benefit them at this point to cut him, especially considering as light as they are in cornerback bodies. I think when we look at things right now, and what we may see in the Giants game is there's a possibility we could have a starting secondary of Cody Sensabaugh, Ross Cockrell, Robert Golden, and Sean Davis. And only really two of those guys are consistent starters for the team, Davis and Cockrell, because Mike Mitchell has also been out ever since he got hurt early on in practice. So I don't think the number of injuries we're having are inordinate. Any of them don't seem to be that severe. We're not the Ravens, we're not essentially a team of walking wounded that it seems like it might be easier to name the guys who are capable of practicing as opposed to the guys who are missing practice, but it is a little concerning. So it'll be interesting to see if Artie Burns can get back on the field, and while he does, I don't know that he's going to see tons of game time, although he's young enough that it probably will benefit him if he can play in the preseason games. It's something to keep an eye on. That being said, one of the guys that I really was intrigued by and liked, Brian Allen, he's a young guy, he's a project, he's a big-bodied potential cornerback. This is a kid that's converted from wide receiver and really has only had one season at corner. And he's done some nice things and he's looked good, but he's not getting a lot of snaps beyond third team. And you remember Joe and I had talked about camp, and we'd written some articles on Steel City Underground. And one of the things we need to look at is to see where these guys are getting snaps. Where are they getting time? If they're consistently stuck in third team and getting a minimal amount of snaps, that may indicate that they're either not showing the kind of progress the team wants, not showing the kind of talent the teams wants, not necessarily understanding the defense, but for whatever reason they're not progressing. We'll have to see how Brian Allen goes. We had John Ledyard on the podcast, I think early this week or last week, and he mentioned that Brian Allen is the kind of guy who they might be able to sneak onto the practice squad. And that's very possible. so we'll have to wait and see. But I am starting to have some level of concern that a position that was stocked or looked like it was full of competition is beginning to be threadbare, and that's the secondary. Flipping to the other side of the offense, during the fan festival, I can't remember what they called it. I wanted to say fan blitz, but that's wrong. It's not the fan blitz. But the Sunday night practice that they had at Hines Field. During that, in 7 shots, we got a solid look at a running back named Terrell Watson, who Mike Tomlin has dubbed the Nightmare. And inside the red zone, the kid was 3 for 3, and he showed power, he showed wide speed, he showed second effort after contact. And, after I think Toussaint got stopped and Davis got stopped, Watson was putting the ball in the end zone, and it was intriguing. He's a big guy, big, powerful running back. So it throws a new dimension into that running back conversation. With James Conner not yet practicing again, Nile Davis looking so-so. As John Ledger again said the other day, Fitz Toussaint really looks or has looked to be the best of the lot over the period of camp. But now we have Terrell Watson come in, and maybe that adds another level of competition, which would be good. It would be nice to see these guys, iron forging iron, as they say, within that group. So we'll have to wait and see how this transpires, and it's one day. One day only shows so much, right? We need consistent, solid effort. But it is intriguing to know that he performed well in that goal line drill. So what else is going on at camp? Well, we had concerns at the beginning of camp that one of the positions we thought was light was inside linebacker. We have Ryan Shazier. We have Vince Williams. And who did we have behind that? Well, L.J. Fort maybe, Tyler Matakevich, Stevie Johnson. And the question was who was going to emerge. And again, by watching where these guys take snaps, who's taking the majority of the snaps, a picture starts to appear, right? And that picture looks like Dirty Red, Tyler Matakevich, may be in line to be the number one backup for both Shazier and Williams. There's been a couple articles written about it. People have been talking about it. And it's, Matakevich is a smart guy. He knows football. He has fantastic football instincts. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the strongest guy. But he has a nose for the ball, as they say, right? He knows how to be instinctual, which is a ridiculous phrase. But he is instinctual, and he understands the game. He understands his responsibilities in the game. He understands where everybody else is supposed to be. And it's interesting. He looks like he is progressing solidly through this second camp, and maybe will be able to contribute. Do I think he's going to ever be a long-term starter for the Steelers? Probably not. But you know what? If his ceiling is a solid, capable backup, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a little surprising, to be honest, because it feels like there are more athletic and faster guys on the team. But we'll have to wait and see. It is intriguing, and it's nice to see Dirty Red, performing at a high level. Another piece of thing to note, I guess, on the defensive side is, over the past few years, the Steelers love to bring in a veteran defensive lineman, somebody to add to depth. And, the last few years we've been blessed with guys like Cam Thomas, and sorry Cam, but you really weren't that good. Cam Thomas and Ricardo Matthews. And this year, Tyson Alualu is a guy. And from everything everybody is seeing, everything everybody is saying, this looks like the guy they wanted when they hit Cam Thomas and Ricardo Matthews. Tyson Alualu may be the best depth lineman that they've had in years. He is not going to necessarily always do spectacular things, but he's going to do an occasional spectacular thing, and he's going to be consistently good. He's going to not make the kind of mistakes that Ricardo Matthews and more evidently Cam Sutton made. He's going to make a press. He has position flexibility because he can play at any one of the down line positions. It's turning into exactly what we would have hoped it would be. So that's good news, right? We have the bad news of the injuries in the cornerback position, but we have good news on the DL. And to top that good news off, LT Walton, who Joe Kuzma spoke to a week or so ago on the podcast, is also building really well off of last season's end. You know, he had to step in when Cam Hayward got hurt, and you know, part of that rotation that was helping to pick up the slack for Cam, and he performed very well last year, and he is building on that to maybe become, again, a solid contributing depth person for the defensive line, which is fantastic. I know that we all really like LT Walton here, and we've been hoping for that. So between Tyson Alualu and LT Walton, with Javon Hargrave and Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward, we're in good position on the D-line, provided that there's no injuries. We're doing very well. So, speaking of injuries, there is a notable injury that I think has benefited a young guy on the team very heavily. And that is that, Landry Jones has been out of practice with a abdominal strain. And as a result, Josh Dobbs has been getting more and more and more snaps. I think the other night, Dobbs had a pretty successful set of snaps. He's progressed as camp has gone on. He doesn't necessarily look tentative. He looks like he makes his reads. Early in camp, it looked like he just wanted to get the ball out. He was making dump-off passes. He wasn't going deep. But he's had some nice long throws. I know that there was one to Justin Hunter, and I think there was another one, but I can't remember who it was to, that both were solid down-the-field throws. So he's progressing nicely. Now, again, as we've been saying all along, Josh Dobbs, barring injury, is not going to be the number 2 quarterback. But the nice thing is, with these additional snaps that he's getting and the ability to show more in this first training camp, he's making a good, solid case that as time progresses, he can take over that number 2 position. And so, while I don't think he's going to be the number 2 quarterback this year, I've never thought that. I still don't think that. It's Landry Jones' position. It is encouraging that he could become a solid, dependable backup in the future. Again, I don't see Josh Dobbs. He's not the replacement for Ben Roethlisberger. We talked about that with John Ledger the other day as well. He agrees that Dobbs looks like a solid potential backup, not a long-term starter. But it's great that, from his standpoint, this is great, and I'm sure he's not, excited about the idea of Landry coming back anytime soon. And Landry Jones, over the past couple seasons, has, as Mike Tomlin has said, taken more snaps in the preseason than any other quarterback in the league. So, to be honest, I don't think it's just hurting Landry Jones much not to get snaps right now. And it is benefiting Josh Dobbs, so that's good. On the other hand, Landry Jones does need to get into football shape, so at some point he needs to come back and start taking some of these reps. And when he does, that will probably limit to a certain extent what Josh Dobbs is doing. So that's some interesting stuff. And then another interesting thing happened this week in camp. Hines Ward, one of the all-time great Steelers receivers, came back and was doing some coaching. Now, he had expressed earlier in the offseason that he was interested in maybe doing some coaching, back at his college in Georgia, maybe, doing some internship work with the NFL. He was interested. Well, he's been working with Juju Smith-Schuster pretty exclusively, and I think that's a great thing. First of all, there are not a lot of receivers that are in the mold of Hines Ward. Maybe Anquan Bolden, and very few others. Hines Ward redefined how a receiver played the game. He was tenacious and nasty, and he liked to hit you. As I just did an article about the top 5 Steelers wide receivers. I've been doing a series of articles about the top 5 different positions, and I've done quarterbacks and linebackers, and I just finished the wide receivers bit. And as I said in that, just ask Keith Rivers about Hines Ward. That'll tell you everything you need to know, right? I mean, the guy, as a receiver, was voted the dirtiest player in the league several times, and it's not because he really was dirty. It's because he played to the limit of the rules. And if he could hit you, he was going to hit you. I mean, again, they changed certain rules because of the way Hines Ward would do crackback blocks on guys and just knock them into next week. So he's a tough guy. And, if you think about how Hines used to play, I mean, he wasn't the fastest guy. He could run routes very well, and he had great hands, and he caught everything that was thrown at him. And that is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's not the fastest guy, but he's going to be able to run good routes. Hines has been working with him on conditioning and giving him a variety of different tips, and I think what more could you ask for? The guy who many of us compared Juju Smith-Schuster to is here teaching Juju Smith-Schuster what he knows of the game. Could we ask for anything better? I don't think that we can. That's fantastic stuff, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the rest of camp. Now that Juju is back and participating, I am really excited to see him in some of these initial preseason games, and we get our first chance of that in the upcoming Giants game. So hopefully he'll be able to play. Hopefully he'll be able to make some impression while he's in that game. I think he's looked good in camp so far. I've been out to camp once or twice, and I can't go all the time because I have a job, and it's not, I do have a full-time job that I work. But I did, take some time off to go out and firsthand look at what was going on at camp. And I'm going to try and get out again before the end of camp, before they break, to see how things have progressed. It's interesting when you're there to watch the variety of different drills and how they go. And it's easy to get tied up in one set or another. But Juju Smith-Schuster has looked fluid, right? He has looked, as Bob Labriola often says, what you really want to see from rookies is, do they look like they belong? And Juju has looked like he belongs. Now, there's another guy who has looked like he belonged. In fact, there's two, TJ Watt and Keon Adams. Now, TJ Watt, everybody has been talking about how well TJ Watt has looked, how much he looks like he understands, and the benefit of having the ancestry that he has with JJ and his other brother being in the league. He understands what it takes to be a pro, right? But the funny thing is, when we talked to a couple people, and I've heard this in other articles and on other podcasts, the funny thing is, the sneaky guy who I said a long time ago that was my sleeper as a potential guy to make the 53, who has looked really good, is Keon Adams. In his NFL.com profile, they compared him to James Harrison, and he is James Harrison-ish, right? Right now, call him James Harrison light. Nobody is Debo. Nobody is Debo. But Keon Adams shows that same kind of tenacity, and he's got bend, and he's got speed off the edge, and he looks good. Joe Kuzma and I were out there, and there were a couple of drills where we would watch, and more so drills than actually watching plays develop. And in those drills, we thought, TJ looks better. And it's not that Keon looks better than TJ in the live play, but the way he moved appears to change when he's actually playing versus just running through drills. At least that was our first impression. Both of them, unfortunately, have had to go up against Alejandro Villanueva, and at times TJ has appeared to be swallowed, and Keon Adams has appeared to be swallowed up by Big Al. That's not new. There's a lot of guys, just ask Von Miller, who I think got smoked by Big Al and made no impression in certain games, as well as other guys. Al's a big dude, and he has turned into a really solid left tackle. So the nice thing is it does look like that outside linebacker position is starting to have some depth. Keon Adams, does he make the 53? It's hard to say. If he does, he probably makes it at the expense of Arthur Moats. And we all like Arthur Moats. Arthur Moats is a great guy. He's a solid player. Is he going to be more than what he has been? Probably not. But he's a good depth guy. He's a good locker room guy. Certainly a fantastic guy in the community. And it would really, it would be sad to see Arthur Moats go. At the same time, if Keon Adams absolutely outplays him during preseason, what are they going to do? If he makes a splash, you can't hide him on the practice squad. Somebody will claim him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Normally, a 7th rounder like Keon Adams should be able to be hidden on the practice squad, but if he makes a splash, it could be tough. So the last thing that has been a consistent topic of camp, and maybe not for the right reasons, but for the wrong reasons, is, Martavis Bryant. What a surprise. Hashtag free Martavis. Hashtag free Martavis. I've been wearing my free Martavis shirt. I don't have it on today because it was dirty because I was wearing it the other day. I don't know. I don't know who's to blame for this. I've read every article I can find about the subject. I don't have access to talk to Martavis. He's done very few interviews. As I've said many times, Art Rooney too doesn't call me, so I don't get a chance to talk to him and find out what's going on. But these guys have been asked, and everybody tends to be very vague. And there's probably some laws that are involved. It's hard to disclose certain health-based information, and so there's probably some limitations to what anybody can say. But the bottom line is, what the heck is going on? Why? Ben's been very clear in saying, in his opinion, Martavis has done everything the league has asked of him to do, and he doesn't understand why he's not been reinstated. There was a tweet today by somebody who said they thought this week would be the week that Martavis comes back. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that's true. It's going to be interesting. Look, Justin Hunter has made and taken advantage of the time that Martavis hasn't been there. Definitely. He has made the most of the snaps he's gotten. He has been a bright spot in camp. But he's not Martavis Bryant. And we need Martavis to get back in there so that when the season opens, he's ready to go. So I get the conspiracy theories. I've often said, I don't think the NFL is out to get the Steelers. I don't think the refs are out to get the Steelers. I just think the refs stink. I'll say it again. I'm going to say it all season long. The refs stink. Until they prove to me that they don't stink, they stink. But I don't believe that anybody's out to get the Steelers, or that there is a prejudice against the Steelers or anything of that nature. But I get it. When you see a circumstance like this with Martavis Bryant and a guy who appears in every way and shape that you can find to have turned his life around, to be doing the right things, to be in absolutely fantastic shape and raring to go, a guy who probably would benefit more by being around his team with that support network in place to help him more than anything else to avoid any potential slidebacks. And yet he's not reinstated fully yet. It is mind-boggling what is going on. And so while I don't believe this is Martavis' fault, I don't believe it's the Steelers' fault, I tend to lean towards thinking the bureaucracy of the NFL and its incredibly slow mechanizations is probably at fault. I don't know whether it's a bias against the Steelers, but man, it's stuff like this that makes fans go, and wonder if in fact that could be the case, right? So, Martavis was ready to practice at Friday Night Lights. It was Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was like, Martavis is here and he's going to go. And then, Kevin Colbert has to go over and get him and say, no, you're not reinstated yet. He has been on the field, different fields, doing his conditioning work and keeping himself in shape and trying to be ready for when he can finally get back on the field. And this insanity of delay is, I think, mind-boggling to everyone. I'm sure it is frustrating to his teammates, who constantly are being asked about it. It's frustrating to Coach Tomlin, who is constantly being asked about it. It's frustrating to the fans, who just want to see him back on the field. Right? I mean, my God. We want to see whether he is still the Martavis Bryant that we think he is. We want to be able to see Ben throw a ball deep to him, and whether it's Artie Burns or Ross Cockrell or Cody Sensabaugh or any of them, we want to see whether Martavis is who we remember him to be. Plus, I mean, wouldn't it be great? I mean, Artie has been doing a fantastic job when he's been in against Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown burned Ross Cockrell the other day, and he came up to Artie Burns and he said, "I need you back here. That was too easy." That's not great for Ross Cockrell, but hey, it is what it is. And it's been a challenge. And look, that's the whole point of iron sharpening iron, steel sharpening steel. When you have the best going against the best, it makes Antonio better. It makes Artie Burns better. And the only other challenge that Artie can get right now is to go against somebody like Martavis Bryant. So it would be fantastic to get him back on the field. A huge benefit to all of us. Hopefully that will happen soon. So, this week coming up, the Steelers will go back to camp tomorrow. We'll see if any of the injury updates change, and we finally have a game, an actual game. I know it's preseason, doesn't count, but we have a game against the Giants coming up. That's going to be an interesting game. I have no idea how much Eli Manning will play. Maybe not at all. I doubt Ben plays. I doubt AB plays. Most of the starters will not play in this upcoming preseason game. But if Landry Jones can't go, this is a good chance for Josh Dobbs to shine, and we will see what happens. It could either be interesting or it could be brutal. A lot of times preseason games are just that, they're brutal. But we'll see. If nothing else, it's going to give us a good perspective on where they are against real opposition. A little interesting tidbit that I'll close out with is it's been a struggle. Our offense has been not dominating our defense. Remember last year in 7-on-7s and the 7-shot drills and the goal line drills, the offense would often come out way ahead in those drills. Guess what? They won yesterday 4-3, and they have lost several 3-4, 3-4. The defense has improved, and that's got to be exciting. Even with these injuries and things building up, I think it's exciting that the defense really does look to be improving as time goes by. So, we're a couple weeks into camp. We've got several weeks more. Football is on the horizon. Thank God. We all can't wait. We'll do another one of these pretty soon where we talk about how this is going so far, maybe after the first preseason game. And let's just keep a watch on guys like Terrell Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler Matakevich, Tyson Alualu, and Josh Dobbs, and see how they perform in this upcoming game. All right, everybody, until next time, be safe, be good, and I'll talk to you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.